Welcome to our first virtual Remembrance Day service for Delisle Elementary and Composite Schools. We will begin with the playing of O Canada, if everyone could please stand. Please be seated. Good morning, honored veterans, Legion members, guests, staff, and students, and everyone who is joining us online. Welcome to our annual School Remembrance Service. My name is Erin Kilo, and together with Rochelle Wright, we will be your MCs for this morning's service. As we gather together each year, we keep the spirit of remembrance in our hearts. We do not celebrate war, but treasure the peace and freedoms that we have because others sacrificed their lives and futures for ours.
Today, we honor our veterans and remember the sacrifice of all Canadians who served. We acknowledge that we are in Treaty 6 territory and as well honor the thousands of First Nations and Métis people who have served in every single one of Canada's wars. It is important for all of us, especially as young people, to remember our history. The collective memory of society can be a fragile thing. Memories can be lost over time, and so we must be vigilant as Canadians to ensure that history is preserved and passed down.
The symbol of the wreath represents a circle of eternal life. The greens represent strength, and the poppy is a symbol of remembrance. Each wreath represents a grade of students, remembering the brave soldiers of the past who gave their futures for us.
It's hard to breathe sometimes. These nights are long, you've lost the way.
We recognize on Remembrance Day on the day that the fighting stopped in World War I. Peace came into effect at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month 102 years ago. The last post is the trumpet call that is played at military funerals and remembrance services and indicates that a soldier has died. After the last post is played, please stand quietly for a minute of silence out of respect for our fallen soldiers. Then the reveille is played, which symbolizes that the soldier has entered into eternal rest. Everyone please stand.
They were young as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge amid the winds of time to carry their torch and never forget. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning we will remember them. Please be seated. The poem In Flanders Fields is an important part of remembrance services all over the world. It was actually written over 100 years ago by a Canadian soldier, surgeon, and poet, John McCrae. He wrote it after his 22-year-old friend was killed in battle. Today it will be read by the grade 4 class, followed by the poem In Reply to Flanders Fields.
In Flanders Fields poem by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely sing in flight. Scared to rid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lit up dawns, our sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to your failing hands we throw. The torch be yours, so hold it high. Ye brave faith with us who died. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
Oh, sleep in peace where poppies grow. The torch your falling hands let go was caught by us, again held high, a beacon light in Flanders sky, that dims the stars to those below. You are our dead, you held the foe, and ere the poppies cease to blow, we'll prove our faith in you who lie in Flanders Fields. Oh, rest in peace, we quickly go, to you who bravely died, and know, in other fields was heard the cry, for freedom's cause of you who lie. So still asleep where poppies grow, in Flanders fields. As in rumbling sound to and fro, the lightning flashes, sky aglow. The mighty hosts appear and high, above the din of battle cry. Scarce heard amidst the guns below, are fearless hearts who fight the foe, and guard the place where poppies grow. O sleep in peace, all you who lie in Flanders fields. And still the poppies gently blow, between the crosses, row on row. The larks, still bravely soaring high, are singing now their lullaby. To you who sleep where poppies grow, in Flanders fields.
World War I began in 1914, and sometimes it's hard to imagine how different life was in Canada 100 years ago. No running water, no electricity, no airplanes. Although the causes of World War I are complex, Canada joined in support of Britain and her allies. In muddy trenches in Europe, over 650,000 Canadians served in the war, with almost 60,000 of them dying. That meant 1 in every 11 soldiers. Every small town in Canada and Saskatchewan had young people who didn't come home and were buried somewhere in Europe.
After 4 long years of war, peace was signed on November 11, 1918. There was a short period of prosperity, but it wouldn't last. Most of the world was suffering from poverty and political tensions. And only 21 years later, the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis meant that World War II had begun. Canadians answered the call to protect our freedom again, with 1 million men and women volunteering from all over Canada. In 6 years of fighting, from 1939 to 1945, 45,000 would die overseas. Our local area had many men and women who served too, and those of them wrote about those experiences. We will now have poems written by local veterans, Mr. Danny Arnston, who was from Delisle, and Mr. Bob Mason, who is from Purdue, but now lives in Biggar.
Daddy went to war. Danny Arnson. I remember when my daddy went away. I was only 4 years old. He was going to protect our country. That's all I was ever told. He was wearing a brand new uniform, and Mummy was very sad. I knew that there was a war on, and I knew that wars were real bad. I asked him why he was leaving us, and he said I wish he'd stay. But he said he couldn't help it, and I'd know the reason someday. Daddy wrote us lots of letters, and Mummy read them out loud. Sometimes he would send pictures, and I'd look for him in the crowd. I missed my daddy an awful lot. I'd play and pretend he was here. Many nights I went to bed crying, just wishing my daddy was near. Then one day a man brought a letter. He called it a telegram. He looked at my mummy and said, "I'm real sorry, ma'am." Mummy didn't open the letter. She cried and hugged me instead. Then I knew why we got the letter. It said my daddy was dead. I was 8 years old when it happened. I tried to be a big boy, but living my life with my daddy would take away lots of my joy. When I grow up, I'll join the Legion. Then I can stand in this crowd. I will wear my Legion uniform, and that will make my daddy proud.
Those Awful Days by Bob Mason. Whenever I think about those awful days, I feel that I fail somehow, unless I try to pass along the horrible impression that were made upon me at that time. Not only the memory of fear, for we all were afraid. Not only the memory of pain, though pain was ever present, but along with all those, the unforgettable impression of another thing, an almost compressing silence that seemed to hang over the whole area, a silence that drowned the footsteps and the murmurs of men as they carried their shattered comrades down from the ugly bit of rising ground, a silence that seemed almost to be dark, a dark haze that drifted over the face of the sun. It wasn't so much the fear that impressed me, so it was the grim unreality of it all, a something that shouldn't have been, a depression that it wasn't all over with yet, and that all this would happen again and again. And finally the awful helplessness of it all. Strong men had died in a terrible way, and ever the sickly feeling of futility kept reminding me how horrible it was, and yet how much more horrible, if possible, they had died for nothing.
We Must Remember by Danny Arnson. The roar of cannons at Vimy Ridge is but a whisper of leaves in a breeze. There's no noise from the bombs over London that once brought folks to their knees. Those terrifying sounds that shook the world, we said never would happen again. But the pledges of peace have been broken, and too few remember the pain. The price that was paid and the sacrifice is lost to all except for a few. Those gray-haired veterans who gave their all to bring freedom for me and you. The monuments built to honor the dead have become chipped and turned a dull gray, and the names inscribed on the honor rolls are gradually fading away. The things they fought and died for have been attacked by merciless crimes, while in Flanders fields they lay fast asleep, if indeed they can sleep in these times. Remembrance Day is a time to renew the pledges of faith that were made. While the torch they threw to us sputters, we must remember the price that was paid.
Unfortunately, Canadians would find themselves fighting another war only 5 years later. 26,000 Canadians served in the Korean War, and 516 died. Although it was not on the global scale of the previous two wars, it established Canada as a country that was willing to work toward world peace. Canada continued that role as peacekeepers for many years in more than 35 countries. Although we were not fighting, Canadians were placed in many dangerous situations amongst fighting groups, and 130 Canadians were still killed. Within most of our own lifetimes, Canada was again directly involved in war. After the bombings on 9/11 in New York City, Canada fought in Afghanistan against the Taliban for 13 years. In that time, 158 Canadian soldiers died trying to bring peace and freedom to their country. The work for peace is not always peaceful, but we do our best to remember those sacrifices. Kate Wright will now play Amazing Grace.
As young people, we are living in a much more connected world than people were 100 years ago. We are global citizens, instantly connected to people in other countries and knowledgeable in issues affecting other parts of the world. We know that many countries are fighting internal civil wars, and others have great strife and hatred amongst their own people. Today, at this very moment, Canadian soldiers are serving all over the world, and so we also remember those Canadians who continue to serve and work towards peace in other parts of the world.
One of the greatest fears of a soldier is that their efforts will have been in vain, that we will forget the sacrifices that they made or the reasons that they made them. As part of our pledge to remember, Delisle students participate in the Legion poem, essay, and poetry contests every year. Today we have a few pieces of student writing.
My poem is called There They Lay. The ones who lost their loved ones in the war, the ones who cannot use their arms anymore. We're happy to see the ones who made it, but the ones who didn't, we all love you. There you lay in the ground. You are respected throughout the town. Today is the day we celebrate you. You will be missed through and through. By Eli.
My poem's called Spirits from Heaven. Spirits from heaven help me see the people from the past that fought for me. They may have scarred us for many years to come. Gunfires may haunt our dreams, but in the end there's no more screams. By Rachel.
My poem is called Remember World War II. After a farming accident, losing part of his 3 fingers, it was a bit hard. The man that assigned him to go to war said, "You aren't going to go with that hand, are ya?" "Well, I don't plan to go without it," answered John. He began training in Red Deer. They taught him how to ride a motorcycle so he can adjust them on the field. He would go to war as a mechanic electrician to work on trucks. He landed just outside of London, Aldershot, a military base. On his breaks, he would go on walks through London. He traveled behind the front line with a mobile shop. He would work on trucks. When he was in Italy, he was sent to the hospital because he had eczema, really dry skin. He was sent to Holland and just made it to Germany. When the war was over, he traveled back to Canada on the boat called Queen Mary. John lived to be an old man.
Peace, a foreign word because it's 1918. As November dawns, the newly fallen snow turns red with the blood of innocent men caught up in this never-ending cycle of death and hopelessness and fear. Fear that this is the state of our new world, bleeding, broken, crumbling under the deadly rain of chaos. Fear that this might never end. Hope, almost lost, but somehow still there. Hidden beneath the many layers of despair, it whispers, "I'm still here. I haven't left yet." And heaven knows it was the only thing that kept many alive when death and cold and fear plagued millions. When the piercing blade of war struck again and again until all ties to security were severed, completely cut off with little hope of repair. Only hope that this might one day end. Despair, it cloaks the earth, a blanket weighted with the loss of 60 million souls. It fought against hope, allied with fear, destroyed with malice. But even the thorny weed, which has choked out so many flowers, couldn't win. November 11th, 1918, the beginning of freedom, the end of war. The sun rose for one last time on the reign of destruction. When it set, the world was free. Release, the earth letting out its collective breath, unbelieving, a flood of relief and reprieve and tears, knowing that nothing could ever be the same. There were too many souls lost, and hearts broken, and lives overturned. So today we gather in respect of those that never came home, those whose families were broken, lives changed forever, and we hope that we have learned.
We have a short video to finish our program today. As you watch it, please remember that the freedoms we enjoy here in Canada were not free. The price was paid by men and women who left their families to fight for peace and justice, some who would never come home again.
They were summoned from the hillside. They were called in from the glen, and the country found them ready at the stirring call for men. Let not tears add to their hardship as the soldiers pass along. And although your heart is breaking, make it sing this cheery song. Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning. Though your lads are far away, they dream of home. There's a silver lining through the dark clouds shining. Turn the dark clouds inside out till the boys come home. Through the seas there came a pleading, help a nation in distress, and we gave our glorious laddies honor made us do no less. For upon the son of freedom to a tyrant's yoke should bend, and a noble heart must answer to the sacred call of friend. Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning. Though your lads are far away, they dream of home. There's a silver lining through the dark clouds shining. Turn the dark clouds inside out till the boys come home. Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning. Turn the dark clouds inside out till the boys come home. Turn the dark clouds inside out till the boys come home.
broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we go work it out. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, I can say, and I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, and I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, we can walk it out. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, I could say, and I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other. Oh. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise. Oh, we will rise. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. Again and again and again.
As our program wraps up, remember that working for peace is not just the job of the soldier. It is up to each of us to work for peace in our own ways, in our homes, in our schools, in our communities, and in the world beyond our communities. Please take time to honor our veterans and remember their sacrifices, not only on Remembrance Day, but every day.
There